Hello and welcome to Super Nicktendo's Unscripted Podcast. My name is Nick, and of course, welcome to the podcast. This is a personal project where I just talk about whatever the heck that I feel like talking about. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. I usually try to do it once a week, but every so often life gets in the way, so it's a little bit casual. So join me for about an hour or so. I try to keep it to 45 minutes, but every so often it gets to an hour. But I got a couple of topics available for you. But first, if you are a fan of audio listening and you're finding the YouTube channel, this episode is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'll leave a link down in the description below. But topics for today's episode, we got my experience at VCF Midwest, the Vintage Computer Festival in the Midwest. It was in Chicago. I have Starfield impressions. I've been playing that game for quite a bit. And final project or topic, do reviews matter? That should be a kind of a juicy topic to get into. So I hope that you guys stick around and you enjoy it. So first, let's get into some housekeeping. I usually go into like some behind the scenes of like what's been happening in my life or just what's been happening with the channel in general. I also have a main channel, which if you guys are for some reason not aware of who I am and you're finding this for the first time, I do have a primary channel, and I have been kind of like making content for that, and like I changed gears to this unscripted channel for a little bit just to get content out of the way. But I posted an unscripted video here on this channel, and it's the Video Game History Foundation subscription. For the channel size, the video did pretty good. I think it got a decent amount of views for what I have. I think I only got about like 200 views or something like that. But it, it's kind of fun to make unscripted content, specifically when it comes to these types of videos, because I have been so used to making just like scripted content for the main channel that it becomes a challenge for me to get the content out frequently. So I've been trying to like use this channel as just to take some risks, and just if a video just doesn't do well, then it doesn't do well. But for 200 views for a channel this size, I think we still have around we have 106 subscribers. It's pretty good. So I will be coming out with other videos. I just realized that like some of the videos that I had planned were like all magazine focused, and I didn't really want to become like a magazine review channel, but I do have some other things. I think what I'm going to do is the camera collection next. I think that I finally have an idea of like how I want to shoot it. I've been actually working on that video for quite a bit. Like I actually scripted it out, and then I was like, well, this is going to be like a 20 to 30 minute video if I script it out. So I think if I keep it casual, it'll come out to a point, I think like 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops. So stay tuned for that. And on the main video, I'm still working on it, and it's just been a challenge because I think like I get too much into my head about like how I want it to actually like look, and I have to just like tell myself that like my super high production like goal, I'm not there yet, and it's okay to kind of just like try your best, and still if it comes out as looking amateurish, that's okay, because the channel, everybody's got to start somewhere. And if I don't like, the perfect video is a video that never gets finished, and I've been harping that, beating that drum for a bit, and I still have to like take my own advice and get rid of that. But those are the things that I'm working on. Like making content for the channel has been kind of a struggle, because like I've been doing other things in my life, and I'll get to that in a bit. But the other kind of thing too is like my room has been kind of like in a disarray, and I don't know about you, but like when I have a cluttered room, it's like a cluttered mind, and I can't really do anything unless it stops. And the issue kind of is that I've been trying to rearrange my room to maximize the space. And I think I actually made some progress. We'll talk about like what I actually got. I've been on the hunt for a cabinet for the corner of the room that's opposite this camera. And I have two CRTs. I have the 20-inch Sony Trinitron, and then I have the PVM, which is a little 13-inch, and then I have like my Laserdisc player and my Laserdisc collection. And for the longest time, I've had it was an old Zenith TV cabinet. Like they used to come in consoles, and somebody gutted the TV and it just became like just a set of drawers. And I was like, okay, that works. But the problem is that it was flat against the wall. And when you have it flat against the wall and the desk takes up a little bit more space, you can't necessarily utilize the space properly because I don't have like the angle for the TV isn't there. And also like it's that TV cabinet was essentially just like it was Mod Podge. It was gutted out. Like they put a couple of like plywood boards in there, and it just wasn't purpose built for like, I'm using it for something that it's not necessarily built for. So like the laser discs, they were kind of haphazardly put in there. The laser disc player was like all the way on the bottom, so I couldn't even use it. So I have been on the hunt for a corner TV cabinet. I was considering building like a desk and doing all this stuff, and I just finally realized, I'm like, well, maybe I should just get this corner cabinet first and then build the desk around it. So I found it. I had to drive like an hour to go get it, but for $100, it's actually like, I think it was built around the same times that my TV was too. So it's built for a large TV. A lot of the other corner TV units that I was looking for I think they were built within the last like 10 years or so, and they were definitely built for like smaller TVs. And I really didn't want to spend money on it to have it like bow or do something under the weight of these TVs. So I'm really happy that I found it. It looks great. It gives the room just a little bit more dynamic to it. I still am working on maybe getting rid of this credenza. The credenza is still kind of like a little bit bulky and everything. I still have to also figure out like what to do on this side too, because my computer, my Apple IIe and the Apple IIc, they're kind of there, but like it's sitting on this Kallax cabinet, and the Kallax cabinet doesn't necessarily have a lot of space to use. So I have to I'm gonna wait on it for about like another week or two. I'm actually in contact with a company that wants to send me a standing desk. So I'm actually, if I get the standing desk, and then I can like work from that. But that's another thing that I got. But the other thing that I got was at the Vintage Computer Festival. And so for those of you who don't know, it's a free event. It's in Chicago, and it's a lot of fun if you are into any type of like these vintage computers. Not necessarily like even if you're not, it's still kind of fun to go in there because everything is set up. You have these, you can actually touch them, you can actually play with them. Some people, they have like these games they're set up for, games from a long time ago. But what's other cool stuff is that they have like these old Weather Channel computers. So they showed up like how like a weather station or like a Weather Channel would work, back in the day. Now I don't know exactly how it works, but like old video production equipment. They also had a mechanical telephone center, so that way you can set up like an old telephone line. The whole mechanics of it, like when the phone is dialed in, like there's all these mechanical switches that go on. It's really an interesting time. It's gotten so big though that it's definitely outgrown its space, because when I went a couple of years back, I think I went back in 2019, it was definitely a lot easier to get to. But this time I had to park like almost a mile away. The parking lot was jam-packed. The line to get a t-shirt or something like that was wrapped around the door. But I mean, it's a free event, so you can just like walk in. But still, like, it was really interesting to see like so many people, and it's so packed. So it gets kind of difficult to like navigate around, especially if you want to see people that you follow on YouTube or on Twitter. You know, there was a whole bunch of YouTubers there. Action Retro was there. Computer Clan, Lazy Game Reviews was there as well. He had like that teddy bear computer, and you know, it was super jam packed. And apparently it was a super spreader event. There was like a whole bunch of people who reported getting COVID, so that was interesting to see. I'm like, I really hope that I don't get sick. And you know, it happened back on the 8th, right? Yeah, like on the 9th I went. So you know, I haven't had any issues or anything like that, which is good. But I went and I went there for the sole purpose to like look around things, and if something caught my eye, I definitely was gonna buy something. Like I brought some cash, you know, just in case. And what I got was, I got some Nintendo books. They're these, I'll put them up on video and stuff, so video things. But I got the How to Win at Nintendo books. Now I've had a couple of these already, but I got this red one here, which is like the second edition, and then I got the How to Win at Nintendo Games 3, and then I got some Prima guides too. So I got Super Nintendo Game Secrets and Sega Genesis Secrets. And I like the artwork on these because they're clearly trying really hard not to be official at all. And so it's like an early Prima guide, because you know, it has like the Game Pro seal of approval, and it's just really neat to just go through. Like, maybe I'll go through these in a video later, but like, you know, it shows like how to beat certain games, what kind of I think it has like some cheats and everything too, if the game actually has it. But basically it's basically a strategy guide before official like strategy guides for specific games were a thing. But yeah, like I really enjoyed that. And then I got a rotary phone. It's an analog phone. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of those headphone jacks. Or it's not a headphone jack. It's an actual jack that allows you to connect your cell phone to one of these, and like, it actually you can use it as a regular phone. But I got that specifically so that way it could fit with my Apple II setup here. I kind of wanted like a retro phone, but I kept looking on like Facebook Marketplace to see if I could find like an old touchtone phone, and everybody wants like $30 to $50 for these old ass phones. I'm like, there's a million of them. There has to be like more. And you know, everywhere I look, they're like, oh, I want $50 to $60. And I was like, I'm not paying that. This guy was selling it for $5, and it was like in the worst condition. It was like covered with like just dirt and grime and everything, so I, you know, made sure to clean it up. But I'm excited to get that attachment, so that way I can actually like use it. Like, how cool would that be to just like, you know, people come in and they're like, hey, does that phone work? And I'm like, you tell me, and like pick it up the phone. But the other cool thing that I got, which I'm actually like pretty excited about, is I got a new computer. Well, it's new to me. It's the Dell Inspiron 8100. And it's a laptop, but it was made in, I think, 2001 or 2002. I believe it's 2001, because it comes with a Pentium 3 processor. And I've been on the hunt for a retro PC for a while, and all of these places, they had like tons of retro computers for for sale. But the desktops have gotten so unreasonably expensive that unless you know exactly like what you are looking for, getting one that's like out of the box, you can get scammed if you're not careful. Like I was looking at like, it was like an old 486 PC or something, or not even a 486, but it was pretty much stripped down, and it had a handful of games that were, you know, pre-built onto the hard drive, and it was like $350 or something. I was like, and it's like it's like one of those set-top boxes where the monitor fits just on top of it, so the expansion isn't as much as like you would want. So I was just like, I don't have the space for it. So I went and I got the laptop. So the laptop was only $100, but for its time, this was like one of the best laptops you can get. Like this is like actually like one of the start of the desktop replacement movement for laptops. You know, I think I definitely know like the iBook and the MacBook Pro and the MacBook were smaller than this one, but this one has a Pentium 3 processor. It's a mobile Pentium, but whatever. It has a DVD drive and a CD drive. It has 2 optical drives. It has 2 USB ports on the back. It has a parallel port, has a joystick port, and it has a dedicated graphics card, the NVIDIA GeForce Go 2, and it's 16 megabits of VR RAM, or video RAM, however you want to call it. But this thing will play almost every single DOS game that you throw at it. And it'll play every single like modern game, I believe, up until Half-Life 2. I think that's like the one that really, yeah, because this laptop has 500 or 256 megs of RAM. I think I'm going to expand it to 512, but it also needs, I wonder, it doesn't say like what the video card is. It says DirectX 8.1 level, but I do think that like it also needs Windows XP, and that's the thing. It's like I'm going to keep this at 80 or at Windows 98. I actually have been kind of like reviewing it because the screen is a little bit messed up, so I decided, I was like, I'll go look on eBay to see if there's like any other 8100s. So I found an 8100 with the high resolution screen. It doesn't work. It doesn't power on, so hopefully it's not too busted up. But it does have the high resolution screen, and it's a possibility that it will also have the higher end graphics card, I'm hoping, because there's a 32 megabyte NVIDIA GeForce Go that I kind of want. But also in like my search, I did find a Pentium 4 Inspiron. It's the 8200, and that one has a floppy drive, and then it also has a CDRW drive, I believe. Yeah, so I just honkers here, but like this is how big these things are. Like it's super thick. It weighs 8 pounds, and it's just a monster of a computer. But I'm hoping, like, these are actually pretty serviceable. The Pentium 4 one works with no issues. And actually, like, I was really surprised because the guy sold it and he was like, yeah, it powers on, but I have a generic power supply. And so I can't actually like get any farther in a splash screen because like I guess the voltage is wrong, but like they did a thing. So I have the official power supply. I powered it on, and it's just some law firm's PC. So there's like a whole bunch of like information on here that I probably shouldn't be looking at. So I think what I'm going to do is, you know, reformat it and also buy an SSD for the laptop just to make it go faster. You know, that's one of the cool things about older computers is that some of them benefit a lot from like they're just limited by hard drive speed. So putting in a cheaper SSD would make it leaps and bounds more usable. But I think eventually I will make a video on the main channel on it. But I have been just kind of sourcing out parts. I got a wireless N and a wireless G network adapter, so I can take these wirelessly. That is one of the things that these things don't have built in, a wireless card. And I also have been just like working around like the MIDI end of it. I tried to hook up my Roland SC55, and it doesn't work in DOS because DOS doesn't support USB. So I have a MIDI cable coming that will plug into the joystick port. So hopefully that will work on DOS, and then that way I can play DOS games that take advantage of the Roland SC55 and the MT32. So that way I can get like a true experience, and then I'll, of course, make a video on it. Okay, next topic. Let's talk about Starfield. I have been playing this game for a while. I figured I'd just give a first impressions of it, just to give you guys an idea of like how I've been enjoying the game, and if you guys are considering picking it up, or if you've already played with it, you can talk about it in the comments below. But I was playing for a full week, and then I just stopped, and then I haven't been playing for a week, and it's fun, and it's similar to Fallout 4 with some elements from Skyrim. And I do think that I know a lot of like hardcore fans of the Fallout series weren't excited about Fallout 4, but I feel like they took what they learned from Fallout 4 and then implemented it into Starfield. The dialogue trees are a little bit better than they were in Fallout 4, and I think the combat is a lot more fun, and they changed a little bit of like the encumbrance too. I know that like that's kind of a big sticking point for people, but this time, instead of just not being able to run, you're still able to run, but you can expend oxygen. But for the most part, I haven't really like run into it too much. I've leveled up enough where I have been able to get enough weight capacity so that way I don't have to like run into encumbrance so fast. And plus, like, if you have a companion, you can just like dump all of the stuff onto them, or you can find a ship or something like that. But I try to sell stuff as much as possible. But basically, like, the story, I like the story for the most part. I think that a lot of people, like, they were kind of upset with the way that fast travel worked. And at first, when I started the game, I was kind of like upset that like the game starts and then immediately you're on the ship and the ship is yours, right? You're not going through, like, you're not exploring the one planet and then you finally get onto it. It's literally like you walk out of a cave and then boom, you're thrust into all of this stuff. And eventually now you finally get used to it. But I think it would have been nice if you were on like one specific planet, which was like your hub planet, and that way you got a chance to like know how it works. I think that's kind of like my big gripe with it, is like the city of Atlantis is so kind of like laid out really funky. Like, I want to go to a weapons vendor or something like that, and you don't, like, it's not abundantly obvious like exactly where it is. Like, there's some kiosks, but the kiosks don't even like show you like a general map. Like, I'm not exactly asking for like an overlay map of like where everything is, but like, it's just that city is so weirdly laid out, and you're not really on it for too often enough to like really get a familiarity of it. I feel like Neon City is definitely more laid out as like a traditional RPG town than Atlantis is. The game looks great. I'm running it on my computer, which has a 4090. It's at ultra settings, and I'm pulling 60 frames a second at 4K. And I mean, I don't really think that you really need 60 frames a second for this type of game, but I mean, it's just nice to have. I remember talking about like frame rate. Does it matter? And it's like, I can't tell, because I was playing it on the Xbox Series, which has a it goes at 4K 30, and definitely the detail is missing when you switch to the PC version. But like when I was switching between the two, it wasn't like a jarring experience. So take that as what you will. But there are some bugs in the game which are kind of annoying. Like sometimes I'll jump into a different system and a main character will be telling me like a story about like driving the plot. You know, they'll be like talking and everything, and you're just like, okay. And then you jump into another star system, and then you're hailed by another ship, and then like the dialogue is on top of each other, so you can't even hear like what your main character is saying, which is like integral to the overarching plot. And then you have a plane or a ship saying, help me, like I need 14 ship parts or whatever, and like they talk, you can't like, so that's annoying too, because now I can't go back to the main character and ask them like to repeat what they said either, because they just kind of just drone on. So it's like great. But yeah, like other than that, like there aren't too many bugs that I've run into. Like I did run into one where like a character was like floating up in the main lobby, but other than that, it seems to have been pretty good. Like the game, once you get into like a little groove on it, it's definitely a lot more fun. But I did get stuck because I do need a better ship to move forward in the game, and I wanted to buy one, but I wasn't 100% sure on like if I should spend. I only had like, I had enough just for like the base ship, which is like way too big, and I think that they did mention that if your ship is like too big, you can't actually like land on planets. So I didn't know if you could like dock your old ship to it or do something weird with it. So I kind of just stopped playing it, and then you know, I haven't really picked it up ever since. But you know, there was some other issues in real life that also kind of distracted me as well. So I'll probably pick it back up again. But given that like the reviews that I've been seeing are pretty accurate, which kind of like leads into my next topic. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk about a little bonus topic, because it does relate to the other thing, and that's simping for companies. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about fanboys. Like I think that it's cool or fine to be like a fan of something. Like if you want to be a Nintendo fan and like only play Nintendo, that's fine, as long as you're not an ass about it, because you know some fanboys are just obnoxious. You know, like they you know, this whole Starfield debacle and stuff, you had like these Sony fanboys being like, yeah, we got No Man's Sky, like why would we need Starfield? And you're just like I get it that you're, you know, you want to hype up your own brand, but it's like it doesn't matter. But you know, like if you're a fan, but I'm talking about like someone who buys something because they're hoping that it will lead into another product that they can buy. So what I'm getting at is because of F-Zero 99. It was announced during the Nintendo Direct on the 12th, and I, for one, like I got excited because, you know, it opened up and I was like, great, they're gonna make like a brand new F-Zero game. And well, you know, it's technically correct, but it's F-Zero 99. It's a battle royale for all simplicity, and it, you know, you go around these tracks and you got to edge out 99 other cars to win the race. Kind of disappointed. I think I'll try it at least. I haven't played any of the 99 games at all, but what I did see on Twitter, which was something that I kind of really like, it just didn't sit well, but there was a whole bunch of people being like, oh, well, everybody's got to play this game and stuff, because if we don't show Nintendo that we're not interested in F-Zero, we're not going to get a new mainline F-Zero game. So everybody should play this game to signal to Nintendo that we really like F-Zero. And if nobody likes this, then, you know, we're not going to get a new F-Zero. And I kind of was like, what are you talking about? Like, I actually like retweeted one thing, and I was like, either Nintendo already has a new F-Zero in production or they don't. like the F-Zero like 99 is not going to be a litmus test to see if somebody wants a mainline game. At least that's my opinion on it, because F-Zero 99 is completely different than what an actual F-Zero game is supposed to be. Like it's an online only game. It's going to be for a limited time, most likely. It's probably going to run for like 3 to 4 months or something, and then they're going to try like another 99 game. It's definitely a litmus test to see how people are enjoying other 99 games. Not necessarily like, if people like this F-Zero 99 game, then we can come out with something that's completely different, a single player experience, assuming that people like this. You know, like maybe they're going to like raise some brand profile or something, but I don't really think that playing this particular game is going to lead to anything else, especially if you don't like it too. Like that's kind of my thing. But I'm not like, somebody else like brought up a good point about gaming compilations. Like if, for example, the Street Fighter collection came to the Nintendo Switch, and so like the company kind of like wants to gauge a little bit to see if they should bring more of their franchise to the platform. But that's not what I think F-Zero 99 is to Nintendo. Nintendo definitely has other analytics of F-Zero. Like F-Zero is on the Super Nintendo, it's on Nintendo 64, and I believe it's coming out for the Game Boy Advance on Nintendo Switch Online service. They have more analytics based off of that, because those games are going to be more similar in line to a more mainline thing onto it. So I really don't think that it's like, play the game if you want to, but I just like, it's one of those things. It's like Nintendo makes so much money. They most likely have like a 5-year roadmap. Like the Microsoft leak showed that they have plans all the way until 2028, and that was in 2022, and so it makes sense that like Nintendo isn't like, I would like to think that Nintendo isn't just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. Like, just they're like, oh, maybe we should try this F-Zero 99, and then like maybe that will work or something. It's like, no, like F-Zero 99 fits really well into that 99 thing. Like they had Pac-Man 99, they had Mario 35, and then they had the Tetris 99. And like all those games like fit, so why not make a 99 racing game? So if anything, I think that we would see more F-Zero 99 content than a mainline F-Zero game, because Nintendo has said in the past is like, they really don't, if unless their IP they can like reinvent it or something, then they don't really like mess with it. And Mario Kart 8 is like their cash cow. So if anything, like F-Zero 99 would be like their mainstay, especially since it's the only Nintendo owned IP, the second Nintendo owned IP, because Mario was the other one. But I'm just saying, like, it just buying something that that you don't really necessarily like for the opportunity to go buy something else doesn't really like gel well. And like going back to that Street Fighter collection, like I know that Capcom kind of like was like kind of being like, well, we'll see if we're gonna add something else, and like Street Fighter 6 isn't coming to the Nintendo Switch, like, and so you kind of like have to take company's grain of salt with it as well. Like I think that if you like something, absolutely go and buy it and stuff. And I understand wanting to have a new entry of your favorite franchise. Like Nintendo finally came out with Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, like an HD remake that's coming out next year. Super Mario RPG is being remade, that's coming out this year. So Nintendo is listening. It's just that, before Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and Super Mario RPG, like, what games did we have to buy to show Nintendo that we wanted those? Like, there wasn't a Paper Mario compilation, like there's those other Paper Marios, the ones that we don't like, that are generally disregarded. But, so it's like we clearly like said, like, hey, we don't want these particular Paper Marios. We want games similar to Mario RPG and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. We want those. And so like Nintendo was finally like, fine, go from there. Like, I really just do think that, like, if you were to accidentally, like, if they were really going off sales numbers, like, we'd get like the lowest common denominator of things. Like, we wouldn't get any of this retro stuff. We would get constantly like brand new Mario and Zelda and Metroid, and that's about it. All right, so let's get into the last topic here. Do reviews matter? I was talking about Starfield, and that kind of like caused a little bit of controversy based off of the reviews. Like, there's a Metacritic score, everybody's obsessed with it. I think that currently the Starfield Metacritic score is sitting at 84, which is good. And then the user score is a 6.6, which is, it's in the yellow score, is 6.6 out of 10. And so, for a big game, it's not necessarily like great, but it's not awful either. I think Fallout 4 got an 87, so it kind of tracks, like, 84 and an 87. I know that this is something that I'm going to discuss, but like, it is what it is. But like, Starfield, despite its Metacritic score, they're saying that they had 10 million downloads, which is, it's an insane thing. It is on Game Pass, okay, but I mean, for a game that is apparently poorly reviewed, compared to Zelda or some other game that, got like a 10 out of 10 from a lot of publications, it's pretty good. So, but like, that kind of just like goes back to it. It's like, does the review even matter? Because like, reviews come out and they seem pretty polarizing depending on like what the internet is feeling that day. Like, that's kind of the thing, is the negative reviews for Starfield were met with like, oh, well, you don't know how to play the game, or you don't understand, like, or you're a Sony shill, or you only like these particular games, or you're doing it on purpose. And this happens with like all these other reviews, especially for popular games. Cyberpunk reviewed pretty well when it came out, and then when it was found out that it was buggy on last gen consoles, suddenly like the attitude changed. Like, the reviews are suddenly bought and paid for. It's like that these journalists are in the pockets of the game developers, and they're trying to con you into buying these games. And Cyberpunk, like, definitely was one of those games where people were definitely super hyped for it. So I do think that the majority of these people had already pre-ordered the game and got mad at these reviews for misleading, even though it turned out to be junk. And it's like, pre-orders are a different story, but the reviews itself, you can't really necessarily get mad at a review for saying that it's good if you already bought the game. I can understand a little bit of it, but I don't usually pre-order games unless like I know that I'm going to like the game. I have gotten so good at like figuring out like what a game offers and whether or not it's going to be good for me. Like, for example, Elden Ring. I know that those are Souls types games. I'm not very good at Souls type games. I'm not really going to buy any of From Software games like that because I know that I'm not going to have a good time. But other games like Starfield, pre-ordered Starfield because I was like, well, it's similar to Fallout 4. I like Fallout 4. I'm going to go get it. But other reviews that have caused some issues. Donkey, video game Donkey, like he did the Octopath Traveler review. He didn't like Octopath Traveler, and people got really mad at him because, Donkey doesn't like JRPGs, and who is Donkey to say that this game sucks and everything, and that he didn't play all the way through, and he said it was boring and it's repetitive. And it's like, but Donkey didn't come out with the Octopath Traveler review on day one. He came out with it for like a couple of weeks, and so like at that time, like people have already bought the game. And I think like that's the reason why people got so mad, is because they liked the game and they wanted to see Donkey like the game, and Donkey didn't like the game, so they got personally offended. And so like it's not necessarily a review that's impacting your decision on whether or not to purchase the game, because like I agreed with Donkey on his Octopath Traveler game. I tried to play that game. I had like the Wayfarer edition for the Switch, and I eventually just sold it because I was like, this game's kind of boring. I'm not really interested in it, and that's totally my right to believe that. Same thing with Donkey. Like, just because Donkey doesn't like an RPG doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have an opinion on it. But then you have the Starfield reviews, and you got James Stephanie Sterling giving it a 4 out of 10, which took the Metacritic score from, I believe it was 87 down to 84, and they gave it a 4 out of 10, and so people were like super upset about it. And like the Jimquisition review, basically they just don't like these types of games, and it's like one of those things. I do think that the score was a little bit more aggressive, because the Jimquisition reviews have always been kind of trollish almost. They gave Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom 7 out of 10s, which I can kind of agree with. And I do think that Starfield should have gotten a 7 out of 10 from Jimquisition. I don't really think that a 4 out of 10 was warranted, mainly because they were building up all the frustrations from previous games. And that's, I mean, it's depending like on whether or not you want to, if you're a movie critic, are you going to like pile on all of a previous series shortcomings onto the new movie? They gave pretty fair criticism on the thing, but I really do think that like the score itself kind of should have been just a little bit higher based off of those things. It's kind of the same thing with IGN, where IGN will give something like a 7 out of 10 or something, and they'll like rate it something stupid. Like there's some like issues that they'll find with it, like there's like that Pokemon review where it was like too much water or something like that, and they still gave it like a high enough score. But that kind of just like goes on to say, though, it's like the review matter. Like, are you seriously, like, why are you upset at these bad reviews that don't agree with your opinion? Most of the people that like the backlash comes from is people who are already fans of the game. Like, they already bought the game. Like, they're not going to wait for Donkey to give his opinion on whether or not they should go out and buy Octopath Traveler. Same thing with the Jimquisition. Like, are you going to buy games based off of the Jimquisition's opinions? Maybe. Like, some people do. I'm not saying that they don't matter at all, but like, if you're getting upset about the review, that means that you've pretty much already played the thing. Like, that's, I was watching Dreamcast guys, his review before I started this podcast, because I was like, I knew that like he was on for his opinions about Starfield, saying that it was unfinished, like that there was all these other things, and then he ended up giving it a fairly deep review. Like, he was pretty fair to it, all things considered. But like it's like, what do you care? Like, if somebody like that is not gonna like the game and stuff, what do you care about their opinions on it and everything? So I mean, like, for reviews, I try really hard to avoid reviews in general until I've actually, like, played the game. Same thing with movies and stuff. If there's a movie that I want to see and I see, like, a YouTuber talk about, I want to see it first before I, like, have my opinion, like, influenced by them. Sometimes they talk about spoilers and everything, but, you know, these, like, popular games, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, I bought, you know, sight unseen. I actually avoided, like, all of the showcases of, like, gameplay and, like, story and everything, and I really enjoyed it. I don't even think I've actually read any of the reviews on it. I like going into a fresh perspective, and, you know, like, some reviews are really bad at, like, preventing spoilers too. Like, sometimes, you know, a game has, like, an integral mechanic that plays into the entire story of it. You know, I don't really want to be spoiled on a game like that. You know, I'm trying really hard not to be chronically online as it is. And I think, you know, having that disconnect and playing a game, you can actually enjoy it for what it is rather than any type of discourse that's already surrounding the game. And it's a lot more fun. So I don't really think that it matters for popular games. Like, you know, if Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and it gets review bombed or anything, like, I don't really think that it's going to sell less than 5 million copies. Smaller games, though, they can benefit because you might not just be aware of them. Every so often I stumble across some smaller YouTuber or some bigger YouTuber who covers a game that isn't in my radar. You know, like, when you're on social media, when you're on Reddit, when you're on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, sometimes it's possible just to not be aware of certain games. So having, like, those reviews can, you know, actually give you, I actually, like, look more of, like, recommendations rather than actual reviews of it, because sometimes, like, these reviews are more of critiques, and, you know, like, like I mentioned, they go in, they spoil the game for me, and I don't really want to pay attention to those if I have any inkling of playing those games. That kind of influences how I review stuff too, and I've gotten actually called out for it a little bit, where people were saying that I was, like, a fence rider because I, you know, for my Playdate thing, I was like, you know, here's all these things, here's what I think is cool, here's what I don't, and, you know, if this is something that you want to buy, there's a link below. And people are like, well, how come you didn't say whether or not you loved it or you hated it? And I was like, well, one, I'm older. Like, I don't really have, like, a visceral reaction to something that's, at the end of the day, just like a piece of plastic or something like that. Like, either, you know, what I like is way different than what other people like. I like the Atari Jaguar, I like the Ouya, I like the Intellivision, I like all these other, like, things that people just do not like for whatever. So, you know, my opinion, I try to be as, like, pragmatic as possible to kind of give it a fair shake and have it fair and balanced, where people can kind of just go, oh, okay, like, I see what you're talking about. And plus, like, I do think that you're not really supposed to be watching one specific person for the review. You want to watch a handful of reviews to get a different idea of it. Like, there are some people who are, like, super hardcore into a video game, and, you know, maybe if you're super hardcore, you want to watch, you know, what they have to say. Or if you're casual like myself, you kind of want to see a fairly casual review. You know, like, maybe the casual person sees a lot of things that the hardcore reviewer might not actually cover because they think that it's irrelevant to their point that they're making. You know, that's ultimately what the thing is. Like, reviews are just to confirm one's bias. I don't really think that people would be upset at the review if they didn't already own the game. Like, it just doesn't make any sense why you're getting so upset that, you know, Video Game Donkey took a dump on your favorite game. Like, it doesn't take away, it shouldn't take away your enjoyment of it. Like, I get it, like, you kind of want the parasocial relationship that, you know, people have with creators is kind of like one of those things where it's just like, we have to all like the same things, and if you don't like the same things, then we can't be friends. And I really hope that those people who are complaining are, like, under 20, because if you're my age, if you're 40 and you're kind of complaining about that, you need to reevaluate your life, I guess. Like, because I can't imagine like just disliking somebody for like not liking like one item. Like, I can understand like if eventually like a YouTuber or a reviewer or something constantly dislikes what you like, then sure, fine, you know, it's a bridge too far. But I do think that it's important to see somebody else's perspective and like keep an open on things, and it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Maybe like, you know, you're watching somebody's review and you're like, well, hey, you know what, I didn't think of that, and you kind of go on from there. I am going to end it there. I don't really have anything else to add to the topic. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. You know, like, let me know. You can follow me on Twitter, as long as that's, you know, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, if that's still around, on Instagram too. I'm trying to like make more content and everything, but like I said, content is taking like a back seat in the past couple of months and stuff. Like, I've just kind of just gotten tired of it, in a sense where I'm not like super motivated to make this for like the growth of the channel. I'm trying to make it more fulfilling as possible. So, you know, that's the thing. But I'm gonna end it here. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Nick, and I'll see you next time.